Well, we've hit 2:04, so.
All right, let's do it. So we'll
All
start
right.
off introducing ourselves. My name is Colleen Rust, and I'm the Director of Civic Education for the Washington State Senate.
And howdy, my name is Leo O'Leary, and I am Colleen's counterpart in the Washington State House of Representatives.
And my name is Lewis, and I am Colleen's assistant in the Senate.
So what I'll do is share my screen here, and we can go through a presentation that we have, and then go through and answer any questions that you all may have. After we wrap up, it'll just be a few-minute presentation to go over the basics. So as we mentioned, it's the Washington State Legislative Internship Program. Our program has existed since the mid-1950s. We really have a rich history in Washington State. I got my start as a legislative intern many years ago, and it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet in state government and learn about not only all aspects of state government, but also to see if public service is a career path for you. So right off the bat, each legislative session, we welcome between 60 and 70 college juniors and seniors to come serve as staff. And, you know, typically we would be welcoming everyone to Olympia, and you would work full time out of a legislator's office in Olympia. But because of COVID, we're really in flux about what the plan will be for January. We're looking at either a hybrid model or an all virtual model. And that decision has not been made yet. We anticipate it will be made a little bit further into the fall, but we want to make sure that this is an opportunity that's available to all people, and that any in-person interaction does not limit anyone's participation if there are, you know, prior health conditions or any other concerns about COVID. So we're working on those options, more details to come. But the internship, you do have an opportunity to earn academic credit, and Romel is your contact for that at Eastern. And you can earn a full quarter's worth of academic credit, because you can think of it like a study abroad program, where instead of coming to class every day or doing your virtual class every day, you're putting your time into this internship, and that's how you're earning your credit. And we will begin the 2021 internship likely about January 6th with orientation, and then it concludes April 25th. And one thing I do want to point out there is the way our legislative sessions work. In odd numbered years we're 105 days, and in even numbered years we're 60 days. And 60 days fits really nicely into a quarter, but 105 days is longer. So for quarter students, you do have the option to serve as an intern for just winter quarter, and you also have the opportunity to work with your academic advisor and extend and stay the full legislative session if that's something you would like to do.
Colleen, one second, real quick. Do you want to get the PowerPoint up? So that way
it's not up? Dang it. Okay.
No worries, we're working together. Technology, woo.
I am so sorry.
No worries. There we go.
There we go. My apologies. I'm rusty from not doing our info session since the spring, so I appreciate your patience. So this puts into writing some of the things that I just said. And I do want to emphasize that political experience isn't necessary. You don't need to have done any campaign work or done any other political work at all. This internship is an opportunity that's designed for you to learn those things, and really the best preparation that you can have for public service is customer service. And again, want to emphasize that all majors are welcome to apply, all backgrounds, ideologies are welcome serving as legislative interns. And, you know, when it comes to majors, there is not a major that doesn't have some sort of connection to state government, because, you know, state government is the regulating authority that, you know, makes all the rules, whether you're going into healthcare or transportation or another type of service. You'll be able to make that connection with state government. And then intermixed in our presentation here, we have a few quotes from some former interns. This is Corey from last year. He was an intern from Evergreen. And he talked about the immersion into state government and the level of not only education, but networking that's provided serving as a legislative intern.
All right, so what does the day in the life of an intern look like? And this will be a little bit different depending on some of the models that we have, but the work is going to be very, very similar, just some of it done probably in a virtual way. So some of the main things that interns do are tracking bills that are going through the legislative process, policy researching. So maybe your office is really into education or the environment or whatever that issue might be. they'll have projects that revolve around that, and you might get to do some research on some very specific things. We had people last year who did projects that had things to do with, for example, youth screen time and how that interferes with their mental health was one project that somebody deep dove into, or monuments for people of color throughout the state and where they're at and what the process is to get more of those things. So lots of just different really cool projects that people work on. Also, constituent services make up a very, very large part of that. So interacting with the public from that specific legislative district, answering emails, taking phone calls, having meetings, again, done virtually most likely in this instance, but those are all things that are part of the intern's job. So you really work as part of a team. It's the member, either a senator or a representative, the legislative assistant, and then possibly a session assistant. And they all work very closely together with the intern to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody's getting work and keeping really busy and understanding kind of where the specific member wants the direction of that office to go. And in addition to the time where you're working in the office, we really try to build a strong civic education component that we present to that we're very proud of. Some of that comes in the form of lessons from Colleen and myself. Some of that comes through simulations where we try to balance a budget, which is something that's going to be one of the major challenges of the legislature during this upcoming session. All kinds of different ways to just help you get a little taste of what it's like to be in their shoes, in addition to kind of working with them. So you get those side-by-side comparisons. You get unparalleled access to what's going on in state government. And this is going to be a really, really interesting time to be working at the legislature with everything that's going on, whether it's social justice issues, whether it's issues with the climate, whether it's issues with the wildfires that are going on, whether it's issues with how we're going to handle the COVID thing. It's going to be a pretty historic session to be observing the process, and especially with the remote component that's going to be factored in some way, shape, or form. So it's a really good way to kind of prepare you for what's coming and give you an up close and personal view of what's affecting your life on a day-to-day basis. We also have some professional development classes, so things with like networking or writing emails or some other skills that will help build those professional things that you'll need in your toolkit when you go and start applying for jobs. And then we also have job shadowing and other networking opportunities, because we want you to come away seeing that state government really does affect absolutely everything in some way, shape, or form, as Colleen mentioned earlier. And so whether it's with Department of Fish and Wildlife or Department of Corrections, we've got lots of connections through lots of different agencies, and we'll be working to help get you set up with some of those informational type sessions. And this is another one of our interns, and she's talking about how it surprised her to be around so many smart individuals. And it's really interesting, because coming to work on campus, you have kind of these perspectives sometimes where, you know, you've got Democrats and Republicans and they're butting heads sometimes, but that's not always kind of the way that things work in our state. In fact, a lot of the times most of the things have very high levels of compromise and they're working together. It's just not what ends up being in the news, because it's not as print worthy a lot of the time. So you got a lot of people who have a similar direction. They all want to make Washington State an amazing place for everybody to live. They just might have different ideas about how to get there. And so being immersed with these different people with different perspectives really helps you to grow and form your own opinions on issues, because you have some conversations with people that you might not normally have those conversations with.
And as Leo talked about with the benefits, this is an opportunity to have a really thorough, in-depth understanding of not only the legislative process, but state government and the branches of government overall. It'll strengthen your professional experience. In this case, likely in a virtual environment, but it will help you build those relationships, develop that networking. You know, you'll get to work closely with your legislative assistant and your senator or your representative and caucus staff and lobbyists and other legislators and other staff members, and really get a chance to experience a true professional work environment. That may be the first professional work environment experience that some of you may have, or you may have had other internships or other professional jobs. It'll really help build upon that and give you exposure to other career opportunities and other career paths. So our goal with this internship is to really pull back the curtain on state government. And, you know, that includes true state government, but it also includes lobbying and advocacy and other areas that are in the same environment. So you can see what might be a good fit for you, make connections there, and explore those opportunities. And you know, as Leo mentioned, this will be a historic legislative session, and it will be really something exciting to be a part of and see how the state addresses the challenges associated with COVID. And it's also been an interesting time to track what other states are doing, and you'll get an opportunity to do that professionally. And then this is Madison. She was an intern of ours from the year before last, and she talked about those connections in state government. And this is particularly fitting right now, but Madison had done some work in forest firefighting when she was earlier on in her education, and she actually used this internship, made a connection with the Department of Natural Resources, and was able to secure a full-time position doing that work. And I'm confident she's out there now. She spent last summer doing the same work, and it was really a passion of hers. So she took this internship and made the connections that pushed her in the direction that she wanted to go already.
All right, so how do you apply? Well, our applications are already open right now, and when you apply, we need a few things from you. We need a cover letter, we need a resume, we need an unofficial college or university transcript, 2 letters of recommendation, one from a professional area and one from an academically focused area. And from like a professional area, that could be like a coach, that could be like somebody who you worked under in a different job or position. From an academically focused, it might be good to have a professor that you've had during virtual sessions, so that way they can write about how you've been successful in this environment. So just a couple things to kind of think about there. We also would like a 1-page personal essay on one of these following prompts. So what book, movie, or piece of art has influenced you and why? What is the best advice you have received and why? Or do you have a story that your application would be incomplete without and that you would like to and feel comfortable sharing with us? So all those things kind of get wrapped up into a package, and we have a link down here at the bottom on our legislative website, leg.wa.gov, and you can click on there and it'll take you to a job form where there's a lot of the information that everything is filtered through there for you. Our priority deadline is October 16th, and our final deadline is October 21st. And with this, I really encourage you to take the time to go through and spend a lot of time focusing on editing and making sure that it gets very, very precise, and you have really good language and words like that, because looking at a lot of the communication that is done within these positions, a lot of it is writing based. And so we'll be paying a lot of attention to those small types of details is something for sure.
And one thing I want to point out here, in the top photo, there's Faith, and in the middle photo is Felicia, and then a few slides prior was Edith, and all 3 of those women were interns from Eastern this last legislative session. So I didn't realize until I was looking through right now exactly how well represented Eastern is in these photos. And if any of you are interested in serving as an intern, but you'd really like to hear firsthand from an Eastern intern what this experience was like, let us know, let Romel know. We can connect you with Eastern students who have served as interns in the past. All right. And with that, we have a final slide here that has our contact information. It's ledge.wa.gov/internships. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well as @WaCivicEd. Our Instagram, we have been posting lots of former intern profiles, so you can hear about where interns came from school-wise and what they've done following the internship. As well as some kind of frequently asked questions and other tips and tricks as you're doing your application materials. So be sure to take a peek and follow us on there so you can stay up to date with those things. What I'll do is to stop share and then allow us to go back and forth and ask questions. If anyone has a question that they do not want to ask verbally, feel free to drop it in the chat box and we will answer that. But we want to make sure that our presentation is directed towards the questions that all of you have. So go for it if you have any questions for us. And Romel, if you have anything to share from the Eastern perspective, as far as getting credits, the academic component, any of that, this would be a good time to share that as well.
So if we do end up doing a partially virtual, partial on campus, as far as housing goes, we have a very robust housing market in the Olympia area that's geared towards the legislative environment. So basically, people will rent out like an extra bedroom that they have or an extra cottage or something that's on their property, and just know that that's kind of set aside for that specific time. We also have a housing list that we send out to interns. So sometimes we have interns that group together and set up in a housing situation as well and carpool. So again, it will all depend on what option that we end up going with, but that is generally how the housing component works.
And as Leo mentioned, I mean, Olympia is kind of like a college town where they have a lot of temporary housing, from a whole house or whole apartment to a bedroom or a mother-in-law, something like that. So if we do have that hybrid component, we think that, you know, based on how things have been historically, that there'll be plenty of housing in the Olympia area for folks.
And I see Jacob was just about to ask that, so.
Yes, perfect timing, Leah. Yeah. Is it possible to do the internship while doing online classes? Excellent question. So yes, it is. We do recommend that people be cautious in recognizing the amount of work that comes with the internship. But especially if you're doing an online class where you don't have that commute and you know, the physical time in another place, I think doing an online class is is a pretty good fit. When I was an intern, I did a few online classes at the same time as well. We just recommend that you don't overload yourself and you think carefully about making sure that you do have the time to not only do the internship to its fullest extent and do well in your classes and sleep and eat and those other things as well. So yes, totally possible, just as long as you know that you can handle the workload. And that's pretty common. You know, we have students who will take an evening class or weekend class or an online class as well, just because some classes aren't offered year-round and you have to be able to take advantage of those, and we don't want anyone to miss out on the chance to be an intern because there's a class that's lingering that they need to take or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's a pretty standard 8 to 5 work week, you know, when it comes down to it. When we're on campus, there are activities that are after work that people can choose to attend if they want to, events and whatnot, but lots of people just go right home right after work as well. So it's pretty consistent from that standpoint.
Yeah. And, you know, it's open to juniors and seniors, and there's a lot of flexibility in what year you can do it and what year works best for you. And really both options allow you to make those connections, gain the experience, and either use that to go directly into the workforce, which is exciting, or grad school or law school or whatever comes next. Or if you do it as a junior, you can take that enthusiasm and those connections and finish your final year of your education before kind of refreshing those connections and either coming back to Olympia or, like I said, law school, grad school, whatever you choose to do next.
It also looks like Jacob asked a question about how competitive the internship usually is on an average year.
Yeah, thank you. I missed that one. So we typically fill 60 to 70 slots and generally have between 150 and 175 applicants. So we don't have a huge applicant pool, but as you guys know now from our presentation, our application process is a little bit lengthy. And when we talk about those applicants being, you know, 150 to 175, those are full, complete applications. So it's a number of steps you have to go through. So typically the people who have a complete application packet and that 150 to 175, they're very strong applicants. So it's tough decisions that we have to make. We do have a strong applicant pool, but so what is that, about a third?
Yeah.
Yeah, and after we receive all the information from you, then we'll set up an informational interview, and we have a quick exercise that we have you do. You'll go through and do some things for us and send it back out to us, and that's kind of the criteria that we draw from when we select our applicants.
And when we, to go into the application and interview process a little bit more, when we interview, we sit down with everyone. It'll probably be all three of us and the applicant on a Zoom call. But we have your typical interview questions that you'll hear anywhere. And then we have a bunch of scenario questions. And that is really to look at your professional judgment. We're not expecting everyone to have the right answer off the top of their head, but we really want to see the way you think about things. So the the interview is kind of threefold. So we have those regular interview questions, the scenario questions that we talk through, and then the final piece are questions that don't have any bearing on whether you're accepted into the program or not. But it's our way that if you are accepted, we have enough information about you to match you with an office where it's a really good fit. So, we ask about political ideology because, you are a nonpartisan position, but everyone has beliefs. No one is apolitical. So we want to hear about, what your strongly held beliefs are so we can make sure that you're matched with an office that would be comfortable. We don't want anyone to be in a situation where they're uncomfortable. And then we also ask about, are there any issues you're really passionate about working on? Do you love transportation and higher education? And those are the two fields you're considering going into, and you're passionate about both of those things. Great. It would be an opportunity for us to match you with the chair of either committee or match you with an office where the legislator serves on both committees. Or do you say, I'm passionate about these things, but I really have no interest in K through 12 education? That's okay. We won't place you on, in an office where that's their primary policy area that they're working on. So we ask questions like that to make sure that we can do our best to match you with offices. Leo and I spend a tremendous amount of time trying to make fits that are really good for everyone involved, because that's a lot of the value and fun of the internship, is not only being matched with an office that's working on issues that you are excited about learning about, but also matched with staff where it's a good community fit as well. And even if you are thinking about this internship and you don't have, a top 2 or 3 policy areas that you're really passionate about, you're interested in learning about all of it, that's perfect. You will. With all of the work that we do in the legislature, and we have 147 legislators in the House and Senate combined, everyone is dabbling in a number of different issue areas. So you'll get a chance to explore and research beyond what you tell us in the interview as well.
And just to kind of piggyback off of that point, when it comes to applications and everything, we really have no one perfect candidate. So please don't feel like you have to be something that we're looking for. We're truly looking for people who know themselves and are authentic to themselves, because they tend to have the best time because we have a good feeling of who they are. So when it comes to placing them with offices, we're not placing them because they thought that we wanted someone more conservative. So they said they were more conservative, and therefore we're putting in an office that they weren't comfortable with, or vice versa. So when you're going into your application and when you're going into interviews, just show us who you are personally, because also this internship is not all about government, to put it in weird terms. People also like to form connections with people. So it's a really good thing to let us know who you are on a base level.
And, to dovetail off what Lewis is saying, like I said, 147 legislators, huge spectrum when it comes to interest areas, ideology, personality, all of these different pieces. So we want you to be who you are, because regardless of who that is, there's a spot in the legislature. We're a huge community, and there's an office that would be a good fit for anyone. And another thing that I want to mention about the application process, and I touched on this at the very beginning, is customer service is the best experience that you can have to prepare you for, I think, any work you're doing, but especially public service. So as you're crafting your resume or as you're refining your resume, if you don't have a traditional office experience job, that's okay. Give yourself credit for the work that you have done. Don't leave anything off your resume because you think, oh, it's not good enough, or it's, I did this in high school and it wasn't professional enough, or wasn't in an office, or whatever that may be. Give yourself credit for the work that you've done. Put it on your resume. Those are the things that we want to see. And additionally, when it comes to things that you may have done outside of school, whether it's volunteering, sports, clubs, things like that, include that as well. because, we're looking for a huge variety of things in our intern applicants, but sometimes there'll be something on a resume that really stands out to us, and we'll say, oh, you were on your high school newspaper? Tell me about that. Because we have communications positions available where you get to write press releases and do speech writing and radio segments and things like that. So it could be something as small as that that we see on a resume that leads to a really great fit in an office for you. So moral of that kind of long ramble is don't leave anything off of your resume because you think that might not be what we're looking for.
And my kind of last little piece that I want to throw out here. Oh, wait, we've got a question here, and then I'll get back into that. Not sure if you answered this, but yep, you can totally do online classes. All right, yeah, he was just answering that. So my part is whether or not you have experience with politics, this is a great experience to learn about things as well. So in my former profession, I was a teacher and I taught social studies, felt like I had a pretty strong grip on the way that government worked. But then I started working at the legislature and realized, oh my gosh, there's so many more things as you start to peel back the layers of the onion and understand really the in-depth part of the processes. And so in my perspective, you really never have 2 days that are exactly the same because there's always a different issue that things are coming through and things are changing and moving. So you're always learning and you're always growing. And so it's just a really, really interesting place to work from that standpoint because it's just never, ever the same. And if you've got a hungry mind, it's a great place to be.
And it's fun. We have 60 to 70 students that are, all of, a similar interest, even if they don't line up on what they're most passionate about or don't line up on ideology. You get a chance to be with people who are all equally passionate about something that you're passionate about. I remember being an intern and it was, there was a State of the Union and there was a big State of the Union watching party, which is like, yes, we're with a bunch of people who get excited about all the same things. So being able to build that community that serves you not only when you're an intern, but then moving forward as you go into your career is something that is really invaluable. And it's a group of people that you can get to know and then call upon professionally as you move forward in your career. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? One thing I do want to mention is that if you have any lingering questions, whether it's 3 hours from now or 3 weeks from now, you can send us an email, reach out to us any way you'd like. If you want to do a one-on-one Zoom call so we can chat through some other things, please take us up on that offer. We're happy to do that. And then we also have another question here that says, how quickly would we hear back about our applications? Great question on the timeline. So final deadline is October 21st. We have adjusted the timeline a little bit. Typically applications close in about 2 weeks, but we adjusted timelines in the spring to allow for more space to recruit here in the fall since spring was wild. So applications close on October 21st. Our goal is to notify everyone whether they've been accepted or not by Thanksgiving. That may be a bit of a lofty goal, but I think it's something that we can achieve. So once we receive your application materials, it's generally about a week before you receive that email about scheduling an interview. And what we're going to do, since typically interviews would be on campus and you'd work through your career center, what we're going to do instead of that is we'll send out a scheduling email to all of you so you can schedule what time works best for you over the course of several weeks in at the end of October, beginning of November. And then once we do the interviews, then we'll wrap those up, talk amongst ourselves, consider placements and hiring, and then notify everyone, hopefully by Thanksgiving.
And then just second off of that, because also as Leo mentioned earlier in the interview process, there is a writing component that will also be done virtually that will, from my understanding at this point, will take place during another time outside of the designated time of your interview. So if you apply, be on the lookout for an email because it will be to some extent a timed writing exercise in which we will take note of when we send you the writing exercise and when we receive it back. So that's another aspect to also keep in mind, that there will be the interviews, but then there'll also be the writing exercise separately that you should be on the lookout for.
And in the application, if any of you have looked at it yet, you'll see at the top beneath your name, there's a place for 2 email addresses. And that's just because our primary mode of communication when we're doing scheduling, the writing exercise, and whatnot is through email. So we want to make sure no one misses those. So make sure you put in email addresses that you use and check regularly. And then all of our hiring is done either via email or over the phone as well. So we want to make sure no one misses anything, and we'll have very clear instructions about not only scheduling an interview, but also completing that timed writing exercise that's part of the interview. All right. Any final questions from folks? Is there anything, Romel, that you'd like to add or that we missed that you'd like us to touch on?
No, I think everything's good for now. I mean, it's good preliminary discussion around how to get everything going. And I think once students sort of get closer to getting everything finalized, I'll just be their point of contact to help them with the initial steps. I guess now that I'm mentioning it, there is one thing I will say. So as we're leading up to the whole application process, reach out to me, because I definitely help people with their resumes and cover letter reviews, and I even do mock interviews and all of that stuff. So I would say it's pretty much night and day in terms of the folks who meet with me and those who don't. So if you need the prep work to get prepared for it, definitely look me up, set up an appointment through Handshake, and we'll do it.
And even if you feel confident and you don't think you need the prep, still take Romel up on his offer. I mean, truly, being on the other side of the interview, we can tell who's done a prep interview. It's a good use of time. It's a great way to get the wiggles out, refine some of your answers, and go into the real thing feeling that much more confident. And the same thing goes for the written materials. You know, it's tough when we're writing our own work. We know what we mean, and sometimes, you know, we'll look over mistakes in our own writing because we're the one who wrote it. So whether it is Romel or your roommate or your mom or a friend, have someone look over your materials to make sure you're putting your most polished foot forward.
And I think another thing I'll add too is as we find out more, like once the selection process is already complete, I'll be reaching out to everyone on my own, so you won't need to worry about what to do next. I'll know who's selected, and once they give me the okay to start reaching out to folks, I'll give you the next steps on what to do to get everything secured in terms of the internship. So,
yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, again, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And as you're doing the application, you might have a question of, ooh, you know, is this person okay to write my letter of recommendation? You can always ask Romel, and you can always ask us as well. So never hesitate to just drop us a quick email. We get bunches of them, and we respond really quickly. We want to make sure that everyone feels confident in the materials they're submitting. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. And then if you have anyone that you know who might be interested, feel free to share our contact information. Check us out on social media, drop by our website, whatever it may be. And we hope to see you guys apply.
Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Romel. If any other questions come up or if anyone comes your way, let us know.
sounds great. I left my email information there for those who need it and need to contact me. You can call me directly as well. I'll put that in there as well. So that's 359-4637, and it goes directly to my cell phone. So if you need to call me to set up an appointment or email, either one is fine.
Okay, and I just dropped our website in there. So if anyone, our contact information's on there, and all kinds of FAQs, application information, tons of information. So check us out there, and look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Take care, y'all.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Stay healthy.